Hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Hey.
Yeah, hey. If you're listening to this on iTunes, I want to let you guys know, since we've kind of done the rebrand with the Real Life Podcast, we actually fully capture video in our home studio and upload it to Facebook and to YouTube. So if you're one of those people that likes to watch podcasts, which is kind of like a new trendier thing, which I actually do.
Really?
I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't listen to podcasts. We make a podcast. I listen to like no one's podcast except Malcolm Gladwell. And if you ain't Malcolm Gladwell, then I ain't listening. Okay. No, and here's why. We've talked about this.
So I didn't know this was a new trend.
Yeah, a lot of people are uploading their video of it now, just like another way to consume it, basically, and get it out there.
Yeah.
But I do watch video podcasts from time to time because I'm a big YouTuber. Like I love watching YouTube. I love consuming on YouTube at night, like usually when the kids are down and we're just kind of doing our hang time and our self time. That's part of my self-care, which actually gets us into our topic this week. Guys.
Which, can I just say, all our topics are led by Jeff.
Oh, okay. Keep tooting. Toot this horn. I'm ready. Keep going.
I just was thinking today, I think Jeff has a real gift of, I think one of his gifting in the church is prophetic and prophecy and a prophet.
That's a little strong. I don't know about that.
Yes, you do. We've talked about this. A prophet.
She just put me on blast. Yes,
yeah, I'm going to put you on blast. Because you're not supposed to downplay what God's given you.
Oh!
So anyway, I think Jeff has a real gift for knowing, how do you say that? Pain points of the culture, or where the culture's going, or things that the culture is in, and calling us to a better story and calling us to, what does God think about that? What does God say about that? And is this something that the Lord is of the Lord and we should be about as believers, or is this something, that we should maybe be going against the stream on? And so all these topics so far in our podcast have been thoughts that Jeff has been thinking, things he's been learning. And I'm so thankful to be married to him to even be thinking about those things, because I feel like that's not my gifting at all. And so I'm pretty oblivious to those things. And then when he brings it up, I'm like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. So anyway, I love that today's topic is about self-care.
Which we will get to in a sec, but actually that made me think of a couple of things. First of all, thank you. I feel very humbled and I'm blushing. If you're watching this on Facebook and YouTube. Well, no, I think what's interesting is I don't give that much thought because I just do what I enjoy doing and what I feel like I'm kind of wired to do anyways. And I think that's a quick encouragement for you today before we get into our topic of just what are you wired to do? Just do what you like. And when you're living with the Lord and living at his feet and talking to him and in intimacy with him and in community and in a marriage or a single in a dorm room, whatever, it just kind of comes out, And what I'm trying to say is everything she just said, I like doing that for myself personally, meaning like I'm trying to think about how I'm being affected by culture and what they're doing to me and how I can tell a better story. And so then it just kind of bleeds out. It's why it's usually why the people that are chefs or own restaurants have really, really beautiful thoughts about food and the table.
Yeah.
Because it's like, so just like stuff like that of like.
It's just really cool to see how people are differently gifted.
Totally. So wherever you're at, whatever age you're at, whatever season you're at, that actually is a gift. There might be hard parts about it, but try to find the gift in that. What else was I going to say?
But you may not realize it because it's so natural.
That's what I'm that's what I was trying to say.
And so I think it's important to have people in your life that can point it out and be like, that's a gift. That's not everyone thinks like that or sees the world through that lens.
Yeah. Can you lean down and make sure that we are recording? Guys, this is the Real Life Podcast right here. Is it counting up seconds? Guys, she's so pregnant that she can't bend over. We're recording. Don't worry, guys. We're recording. There's nothing worse, guys, than when you do stuff like this and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, I forgot to press record.
It's kind of like when you are going on a...
that was hilarious. Though. If you're on video, guys, you will see how funny that was. Where she tried. We keep the recorder we record on a table, and the recorder is kind of on like the apron of the table. I think is what they call it. And you tried to. I don't know why I shouldn't have asked you. I should have known. But continue. What are you gonna say?
Well, it's kind of like one of those things when you're getting ready to go on a flight and you check to make sure you have your license like 10 times, because the worst thing in the world is to get up to the counter and to realize you left it at home. So I don't know if anyone else is like kind of anxious about that. So that's how we feel when we record podcasts. Like, oh, are we recording? Are we recording?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's check the numbers. Are we recording?
Exactly.
Okay.
But no, yeah. And then one thing I was going to say too is, this has been really fun, guys, to bring a little bit more deeper thought and try to make people ask questions to their life on the podcast. I'm always thinking about these things. I feel like that's my default position. I'm always breaking down things, deconstructing them. But I usually leave that stuff for the books I write every couple years. and I always just kind of keep to myself, I think, with the internet. I don't know why, just because sometimes it's a little bit more, I don't know, it just gives me more space to process. But it's actually been really fun. I feel like I've found a rhythm of sharing it on Instagram, sharing it on the podcast, and we just really enjoy the conversation. And so we really want to say thanks to you guys. This cool thing I've been doing is I post every week. We post the podcast on Tuesday, and that day on Tuesday, I post an Instagram post with a picture that kind of, in the caption kind of shares like a quick snippet or a heart of the podcast and how I came to that truth or what conversation or what questions we're asking. And and the comments are amazing. It's always my most engaged post with hundreds of comments. One of them a couple weeks ago was 900 comments, which that's the most I've ever gotten. It was just crazy. It was a really cool conversation. And you guys are all super nice and cordial. It's not like Facebook where everyone is just cray, right? I'm just joking. If you're watching this on Facebook, just joking. I love you. You guys are the best. You're like that, like the crazy aunt at the Thanksgiving dinner where you're like, oh, I love you, auntie. You're amazing. And then you're like glad you don't see him for 364 days. I don't have any aunts like that. I've just heard I don't have any aunts like that. No, I'm totally joking. But you know what I mean? Facebook's like
That's terrible let's just wipe that part out. Okay?
No, keep it in. It was honestly hypothetical. And so
I know, but I feel like you just put the Facebookers down.
No, Facebook, I love you. Okay. You guys gave us our start. Okay, 6 years ago when the video went viral is because of Facebook. We will always.
I would be interested to know though how many of you are Facebookers and how many of you are Instagrammers.
Meaning, like we all usually have the profiles, but what's your favorite one?
Like I haven't gone on.
Mine's
okay,
Instagram,
I
for sure.
hadn't gone on Facebook for months, and then I had to go on a few weeks ago because I was trying to sell some things on the marketplace. And all of a sudden, I started scrolling through it. I'm like, I didn't even know she was pregnant, and she has a baby like multiple times.
That is funny. Well, okay, so we really got to get into this week's topic.
Okay,
but
yes.
one last thing I was going to say
guys,
is,
we're all over the place.
Oh yeah, so we really enjoyed that discussion there. And so genuine thanks. It's really fun. I feel like it's a bright spot on the internet where everyone's just, even if they disagree with what we're saying, everyone's super nice and super fun. I really love that. So if you're listening, hop onto Instagram, whenever you listen and try to maybe go back and comment on the posts, or on Tuesday, go start. Hop in the conversation there. It's really fun for us. So we really enjoy that. And so thank you. You guys are awesome. And this has been really fun to process out loud with you guys, journey with you guys, think through things, hear the complexities of really different truths, but then maybe a different lifestyle can't apply it. So they apply it this way. It's really cool. Okay. So this week we are talking about self-care. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about that word and that phrase is because I have some serious caution about it, which I know might, first of all, make you go, oh, well, isn't it a good thing? Yes and amen.
I mean, I love my chocolate brownies.
Exactly. That is the definition of self-care right there, guys. If that's all we're talking about, that's fine. No. So we really believe in self-care. We believe it's pivotal. It's the one reason that we, I think, have such a strong backbone to our life because with toddlers and marriage and work, it's hard. It's busy. I think people think just because we work at home and we sit here and do nothing, but like it's toddlers and work and writing books and produce whatever your job is. Like if you're in the season of toddlers plus work plus marriage, that is no matter what you're doing, it's insane.
Even single and you work full time, like 100%. That's a lot.
Yeah, I would actually, 100%.
Maybe
actually, if you're single and listening, there is a couple people that have even messaged me, and I 100% agree, and I want to make sure that's acknowledged, that there is seasons of like even like college and specifically at the master's, graduate level, medical school level, that is like you can't really get busier than that.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, for sure. Self-care is important in all stages. So we deeply believe in it. We deeply think it's important. And I think it's actually the secret for us of why we have such a sustainable life, because we really believe in it.
Don't burn out.
Yeah, which we talked about last week with rhythms. This is different though, or a couple weeks ago with rhythms. And so, but I do think there's a serious dark side again to self-care. And this is what I want to talk about. I think self-care, how do I propose this? Anytime I'm starting to struggle with that concept, because anytime a word becomes buzzy, meaning like becomes very popular to use the word,
it gets misused.
It gets misused, but then also it gets popular enough for Madison Avenue to sneak in. And what I mean by that is Madison Avenue is the shorthand for like advertisers. Oh. Madison Avenue is the famous street in New York, I believe, where basically like in the heyday of the 1950s, there's a show that like Mad Men. It's basically like Madison Avenue is where the culture of what you need, what you want, what the world says you should desire, advertisements, commercialism, etc., is like that's the hub of it or the icon of it. And so I think once Madison Avenue comes into the equation, that's when things get very damaging, especially for followers of Jesus. And Madison Avenue, again, is heavily now invested in the marketplace of self-care. And what I mean by that is it is now a marketed, consumerable good self-care. It is not something that actually like is to sustain your life. And so, you see the advertisements, right? Like it's this culture of Instagram of like the self-care is it's overly licentious, right? Overly opulent of like, the crazy resort is what self-care is in Bora Bora on the thing that goes over the water. And I'm trying to go there someday. So that'll be awesome self-care.
Sign me up.
I know. But that, or like the bath bomb culture, which I was laughing with Alyssa of like those bath bombs, if you drop them in the bath and they do all the crazy glitter things. And again, guys, we're not hating. Like I am a bath man. A lot of men are not bath men. I am a bath man. Give me some salts. Give me some candles, give me a book, and I'm in, okay? But that culture, hopefully you heard what I'm saying, like that ideal of the bath bomb culture and the just do this and treat yourself culture, even though we joke and say that all the time. There's a close line where that actually becomes kind of self-indulgent. There's a difference between self-care and self-indulgent, and there's a difference between true spiritual, holistic, human self-care and commercialism.
Or consumerism.
And consumerism and consumption.
Which doesn't always bring rest and self-care.
Sometimes, guys, self-care is you going and serving your neighbor every week, right? Self-care is sometimes going and mowing their lawn every Thursday because that makes your heart flourish and gives you a depth of joy. Now, if you've got toddlers and you're in crazy season, blah, 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 yeah, probably going and doing yard work for someone is not self-care. That would burn you out, right? But I'm just saying, like, self-care does not equal go buy something. And here's one thing I'll say that I really struggle with self-care.
Or check out or numb out.
Yes. Escapism and consumerism are kind of my two problems with self-care that I think our culture is pushing.
Yes.
And the first one, consumerism, you talk about escapism and I'll talk about consumerism. The consumerism one, I really struggle with because a lot of people don't know this, but I was raised super poor. Like I was thinking the other day, like me and my mom probably couldn't have, if we were any more poor, we would have been homeless. Like we couldn't have gone more poor, which is really interesting. Like, super low income, Section 8 housing, government housing, food stamps, every subsidy, every entitlement program you name, we were a part of. And thankfully, we needed that and they helped us because my mom was a single mom, super awesome, intent. Like single moms are heroes. Like she just had the craziest work ethic and just was a boss. But you just, like in our society, you just can't really make that work a lot of times in certain, you're starting two legs down type of thing or whatever that phrase is. And so I think I'm very sensitive to the large swath of population that is lower income and that is in poverty or that is in a single parenting situation or is in certain demographics. And what I mean by that is if self-care is not true, if your idea of self-care cannot be achieved for them too, then it's not true self-care. That's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if your idea of self-care cannot be achieved by someone who doesn't just have a lot of money, then you have a really bad parodied, caricatured version of self-care, which probably isn't actually even helping you that much either if you do have a lot of money or if you are middle class and you have decent money, whatever. And so that's the first thing of like, it's true self-care has to be able to be achieved by all walks of life for it to be true self-care. Now, of course, like we've done a baby moon and we've gone to a hotel and we've saved up and gone to these things for really special moments. Of course.
I like bath bombs and
totally. I don't. I'm all about the salts, but anyway.
Well, with kids, they're really fun.
Yeah, totally. So we're not saying, but I'm saying you do just have to be sensitive.
Yeah.
Of that.
And aware of your heart's desires, I think, and where you're inclined to.
And understand that if you do have the means, and that is an element of self-care, then you can do that, but that is not inherently all self-care means. I think at the base fundamental level, you have to go against the idea that self-care does not equal consumerism.
Yeah.
It means your heart as a human is flourishing. So that sometimes can mean that you use the power of currency and money to buy you some type of space or energy or tool that can allow you to care for yourself. But sometimes it also means just getting away with a book. Sometimes it means taking a bath. Sometimes it means playing with your kids. Sometimes it means like getting introspective. Like I think that's really what self-care is. Like if you don't even know what the actual problems of your heart are and the triggers of your heart are and where you actually are most prone to kind of go off the deep end in your personality, because everyone has that deep end that we're very much easily with one little step, we can kind of go off the deep end. If you don't know those things about yourself, then you're not gonna be able to properly care for yourself. So like that's a huge part of self-care is just like self-awareness. The Enneagram's a great tool for that. Other things that we've talked about. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah. But lastly, before you talk about the escapism, because I got some thoughts there too. I want to hear yours. It really, guys, what this really comes down to is, and we've talked about this in the past with the Greek word telos, right? Which is this Greek word that James K. Smith has kind of popularized in his book. He's a Christian philosopher. You Are What You Love. Phenomenal book. One of my
yes.
favorite books of the year. He talks about this Greek word telos, which essentially in Greek kind of means the end goal or like the chief finish line or vision for your life. Or he kind of describes it as the good life. Like, what is your vision of the good life? If you could just have the ideal life at the end of your life and be living in it, what is that? And that's kind of your telos. It's your driving force. You don't realize this is what he says, but that is what makes you who you are. Whatever your finish line is in the good life way, not just like accomplishments, but like what you want it to kind of feel like and be like. What is the vision of your good life? That's your telos. That drives you, that makes you, and that essentially, like if I could just transport 10 years in the future, that's who I will be, whatever my telos is, right? So hopefully it's a good one. But here's what you have to realize. With the self-care, consumeristic, commercial Madison Avenue movement, followers of Jesus always have to be exceptionally sensitive to not adopt the world's telos. That's essentially like you can take care of yourself, and a lot of things can cross over. It can be like a Venn diagram where they meet in the middle and there's crossover. But followers of Jesus always have to be deeply, intensely focused on never letting the telos of the world capture us. Like their vision of the good life. And the vision of, and here's why I think sometimes self-care, and this is where I'm going to pass the baton to you now, with escapism is bad, is because a lot of times the vision of our good life is to not work. Mm-hmm. And it's to escape the things that actually Jesus says give you like life. Like work, according to scriptures, is sacred and beautiful and filling and incredibly mandated and part of what it means to be human. Having a family or having relationships if you're single with your family or with your community or with your dorm mates, all these things like those are according to scripture where life is at. That's the good life. But we say, no, don't work and go to Bora Bora. Like if you can actually go to Bora Bora for the rest of your life, that's the vision of the good life according to the world. Mm-hmm. And never work again. Like works, we actually have like a very dark side of work.
Or even if you take it down a notch, like get through the week so you can enjoy the weekend.
Same thing, totally. Thing, yeah. Or with relationships, what I just said, we say if you can escape relationships and just be totally self-autonomous and take care of yourself, and you're all you need, which is a kind of a terrible lie we tell in culture, then that's a division of good life. That's a division of the crappy, horrendous, ridiculous, terrible life according to scripture, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why C.S. Lewis in The Great Divorce in his fiction book paints hell as a picture of where everyone is in isolation, where one person in hell, the nearest person next to that person in hell is like 3,000 miles away. And so just everyone is literally thousands of miles away from each other because it's at its core part of hell. And this is fictionalized, of course, but I think it gets at the spirit of it for sure, is isolation. But you go. Talk about escapism.
How can I follow up with that?
Talk about escape, because I think that's a huge part of it too, is like, okay, now it's not just about consuming things that are self-indulgent, but now I think people use, and if it's not for escapism, what's it for?
Well, and I think they go hand in hand. Like the first thought that comes to my mind is when, you've had a hard day, a hard moment with your kids, you had a stressful day at work, you come home, you pop open that glass of wine, bottle of beer, glass of wine, you get on your phone for 30 minutes just to numb out, check out. Yeah. You go online to shop. You go to a store to shop, whatever. Like you're wanting to escape uncomfortableness, or maybe that was
keep going. That's
or
good. I like
a conflict or stress or all these things that happen in life that we deal with, and we want to escape it. And it's hard because it's so, what do you even call that? Like, it's not in your face. Like, it's not like, oh, wow, that was a hard moment. I'm just going to go numb out for
subtle.
30 minutes. Like, oh, I feel really stressed right now. I just need a glass of wine. Or I feel really stressed right now. I just need to get on my phone for 10 minutes and see what other moms are doing so I can have some type of joy to handle my kids for the next hour or whatever. Yeah. Like these moments that, or I had a really stressful day at work, I'm going to eat this whole pint of ice cream. Whatever it is, I think we're wanting to, we're wanting to escape and kind of numb out from life. And instead of, and I'm not saying those things are inherently wrong. I'm not saying you can't enjoy a glass of wine or get on your phone or have ice cream.
Preach. Dairy-free though. Dairy-free.
But I think it's just really being in tune with kind of what Jeff was saying, being in tune with your heart and your desires and your longings and what your telos is. And when you get stressed, when it's been a hard day, when you have a moment of like, whew, and where are you turning to? Because I think those things in our culture are like, oh, self-care, like just Netflix and chill or whatever it is, instead of taking 5 minutes and just talking to the Lord, like, wow, Lord, I feel really stressed out right now, or today was a really hard day, or that was a really hard moment with my kids. And or just getting away for 5 minutes and having peace, or going for a walk, or doing those things that actually fill you up and actually bring you peace and actually give you rest, instead of just this numbing where then I feel like you go into the next day and it kind of just all builds on itself, and you're not finding true rest, and you're not having true self-care. You're kind of just like coasting through life trying to deal.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what God has intended for us at all. That's not.
He doesn't want us to just cope with life. He wants us to flourish and live life abundantly.
And I think that goes hand in hand too with what you were saying about like this autonomy. And I think we as believers know that community.
Oh,
I know I'm learning some good words. We as believers know community is good. We know we can't do life on our own. We desire relationships. But I think if you think about the day in and day out of life, I think a lot of times we just try to do it by ourselves. And whether that's we aren't sharing with our spouse the real struggles that we've had or the real thoughts we had through the day, or we're not texting our friend and be like, hey, can you pray for me right now? I'm really feeling this. But I think a lot of the times it's like we're not going to the Lord. We're not talking to him. And instead we go to our phone to numb out, or we text people back or we like work on something on our to-do list instead of just taking a moment and just talking with the Lord and being aware of his presence and rolling our burdens to him. And I think sometimes when we're so go and so tired and worn out, it's hard for us to even be aware of God's presence and to talk to him and be aware of how we're really feeling and how we're really doing. And so sometimes I think it just starts with like, go take a nap or go spend 12 minutes outside walking to just like rest a little bit until you can come to the place of being like, hey, Lord, like this is a hard moment, or I'm feeling these things, or just giving thanks to him. I think a lot of it is just being aware of his presence. I think I'm just learning a lot. I know I'm kind of going off the path of what you were talking about, but I'm learning so much right now, just like being aware of God's presence and thinking about letting him into my life and thinking about the things that really give rest, that really give peace, that really give joy, and putting off the things that the telos that I'm telling myself that is not of the Lord and that actually I don't want. But I'm following in this, like just this morning I was journaling about things that I love, because I know it's about your heart's desire and your longings. And I'm like, what are things that I love, good and bad? And I had a whole list, and then it was like, hey, what are the things that I love that I want to grow in that are good for me and that the Lord wants for me? And when I made that list, it just became so clear, like, oh, I'm believing this telos that the world is telling me, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to be that person. That doesn't actually fill me up or give me self-care or give me rest. Like, I want to do these things. And even what Jeff was saying about what true self-care is, like yesterday I sent out 3 packages to my friends, and I was writing notes to them. And that's work. That's like something that's like effort. And, but as I was writing those letters, I was like, this is filling me up so much. I love that I'm going to be sending this note to a friend to encourage them. Like, this is a good thing that I love, that the Lord, like, this is self-care for me in that moment, where normally I would think self-care, I just need to like go do nothing for a little bit, which sometimes
a lot of times it is. Yeah.
But sometimes it is serving somebody or sending an encouragement or those things. But I kind of blabbered on. Does that
No, I don't think you blabbered on at all.
Sense?
People, I think, probably want you to talk more than me. No, I think that was incredible. I think I would agree and say a couple things. I just thought of a metaphor. Well, a lot of times our version of self-care is a parody, which just means like it looks similar, but it's hollow.
Yes.
It looks similar to the real version, but it's hollow.
And so I think you have to take that next step of really
asking why and what fills me, etc.
Yeah.
Then a metaphor too that I want to use that if you think about it too much, it'll probably fall apart and it's terrible, but it made sense for 2 seconds in my mind. So let's talk about it. Is true self-care is keeping gas in your car so you can drive around normal. Like you keep gas in your car and you have the cadence of putting gas in your car before you get empty.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was only in high school when I ran out of gas because I was an absolute tool and didn't know how that stuff worked. And I had $4 to my name and I was driving and I was trying to make it to school and it was snowing and it didn't work and I ran out of gas and I had to walk in the snow. But anyways.
Is that true?
Yeah. I ran out of gas. It was brutal and it's crazy. It's a real weird feeling when it runs out of gas. It like kind of slowly shuts down.
I didn't know it was in the snow.
It was like a little bit, not like white, but
like
yeah, it was
sleety.
cold and it was like 30 degrees. What was I saying with that? But yeah, so like ideally the best situation is to put gas in the car before you run out, right? You just keep filling up the car, usually when you're on your way to emptying the tank so that you can drive around normal. That's good self-care. Bad self-care is the guy who, when he's angry, storms out the door, takes the sports car and drives 100 miles away from the house. Like that's a weird metaphor if you think about it and it breaks down, it doesn't make sense, but it kind of makes sense in the surface level of like, just like, oh, I need to get away from this and just floor the car and go away. It has nothing to do with gas, right? And you actually will run out of gas probably out there 100 miles away or whatever. It's more just about like you want the thing that's actually giving you the life there is the thrill or the feel of just getting away.
Yeah.
Getting away and pushing the pedal to the metal in a car, right? If anyone who's ever kind of driven like that out of anger or whatever, not me. So again, it breaks down if you think about it too much, but I think that's kind of it of like, no, self-care is not trying to get away out of either like a strong emotion, like a anger or frustration or whatever. It's actually just keeping gas in your tank so you can just drive your normal life. So you can just do your normal things. And so it's not escapism. But sometimes they're similar. Sometimes like those are both cars and those are both driving and they both have gas. The issue is sometimes true self-care is understanding where the landmines are in your life that deplete you pretty quickly and having safeguards and things with the Lord or just with your humanness that fill you back up before you get empty. So that's kind of true self-care. And then we have to really push hard to not make self-care consumeristic. We of course use money on our self-care, and most people do. But I think you should always try one step harder before you pull out the wallet to say, what can I do to take care of myself right now that's free, right? And it's usually, at least for me in my life, they're very small, mundane things. Going for a walk, getting outside, riding the electric bike, getting some reading, right? She's kind of smirking because I don't go for a ton of walks.
No, I was just smirking at the electric bike.
Oh yeah, because that involves no work. I press a button. Or getting on my electric skateboard. Clearly,
which Jeff's gotten. Never mind, go on.
Yeah. She's about to put me on blast. Or reading a book is a huge one for me.
Yes.
Kind of morning time is a huge one for me. Just like really simple cadences, right? Really simple flag points in your life. And so I think that's just really, really important. And you want to set up self-care that has a longevity for your whole life. And so the freer it is, the better it is in that sense, right? The freer it is, the more you can actually set yourself up for longevity.
Well, I think I'm just realizing as I was journaling this morning, like the things that really fill me and actually give real true self-care are those free things. Are like, for me, I have a problem. I just, in my fringe hours, I would say I'm on my phone a lot. And I'm realizing it's kind of giving me this telos of like consumerism or
the vision it's giving for your good life. Yeah.
It's not numbing out for me, but it's just like wanting to see what other people, like I love Instagram, but I just realized today I need to set a time limit on it. Cause I realized this week when I put my phone away, that's when I feel real self-care. Like when at night, when we don't turn on Netflix or are on our phones and I'm reading or we're talking or I'm crafting something. For me, that fills me up and that gives me the what do you call that? The stamina to keep going. Yeah. And I'm not saying everyone is like that. I'm not saying the Lord, this is the godly way to do it at all. I think you have to get away with the Lord and really check your heart and ask him what fills you up and what keeps you going but I think in this age of our phone where it's always with us, I think we need to come back to like having some silence, having some space to just like breathe and think and talk with the Lord and be aware of doing things with our hands. Or I think that goes for everyone, like however you handle your phone. I think just even if it's just text messaging, sometimes that gets stressful because you're like always you like send a message and then you're anticipating someone to text you back, and so just putting it away for a little bit, I think it just lets us breathe a little bit, and that's a great place to start for true self-care.
Totally. And then I'll end with this, guys, just to clarify. And we're purposely, well, I think you actually get a lot of practical ideas we laid out here, but I think purposely too, we're keeping it a little philosophical and critiquing of certain elements because you have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
You really do have to like, what is that for you? Like we talked about on the Rhythm podcast a couple weeks ago, like Alyssa, self-care for her is getting an actual break of like an hour or two a week where she can get away, where it's no responsibilities. It's not just like a fringe hour where the kids would already be down or whatever, to journal, to think, to pray, etc. I don't need that, right? So we're different people. But I need other things. One thing I'll say is this. Don't buy the lie either, or the parody that self-care just means self-indulgent. And what I mean by that, or that you'll automatically like it. There's things that you should be doing for self-care that you probably hate. Or, you know what I mean? Like
that sometimes are hard. It takes effort to
totally. Well, here's what I'll say. Like
things.
Going to the doctor, guys, is not treat yourself. But going to the doctor is the epitome of self-care, right?
Yeah.
Like you will die if you don't get checkups every 5 years. Or if you have kind of a cold or you're kind of running low on the gas tank, you know, like the metaphor we used earlier, and you don't go, well, then you probably aren't going to know that you need gas or whatever, right? I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, going to the doctor is not treat yourself mentality, but that's the definition of self-care. And another one I'd use is like, it's not always things you love. So like we host a small group in our house every single Thursday and we love it. It's amazing and it's life-giving. But anyone who knows in a small group mentality, once you're together for the long haul, there is just random weeks where you're tired and you don't feel like it. You're just like, oh, I'm tired. I want to go to bed, or, you know, like, or I just want to call in sick or whatever. Everyone's been there who's in a small group mentality. But I would argue going still faithfully is self-care. It's like I'm taking care of myself, knowing that if I put myself in this position every week, week in and week out, over the long haul, that'll give me life and sustain me and help me and provide anchors in my life and in our community and in our marriage and with our kids. So stuff like that, it just doesn't automatically mean like it's enjoyable or treat yourself or cost money or is special, or no, it's like it's a diagnostic tool essentially with a solution that is supposed to serve you. And so there will be things that are enjoyable and there will be things that aren't. But I think that's the main thing I wanted to talk about.
And can I add?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it takes time to figure out what actually is self-care. Like sometimes you'll try something that's self-care and you're like, actually, that was terrible. I feel even worse after that. Yeah. And then sometimes you'll be like, oh, this is what fills me up. I feel like this is what I need.
Yeah,
I think it's giving yourself grace of like, this was good, this wasn't, or today I need this, not this.
Here's a really quick exercise we'll leave you guys with, okay? And I've heard it a couple different ways, but the way I like to think about it is get out a quick piece of paper or do it on your notes app right now if you're listening at the gym or if you've been in a parking spot, listening in the car, whatever. Don't do it while you're driving. And write down 5 things that fill you up, 5 things that drain you in a really micro level, right? Don't put like your job, because that would be a really like cataclysmic thing of being like, maybe it is your job that drains you, but I would just say, and then you'll have a big decision ahead of like, I'm saying small things.
We're not going that deep right
now. So
like
5 things that fill you. Mm-hmm. So like for me, that would be watching YouTube videos. Sometimes that's
Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah. Yes. Like I kind of like watching and researching and things on there. Woodworking, reading books, good coffee, and whatever. I think is that 5? Yeah, or 4.
Legos.
And Lego.
Which,
there's no plural. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're an AFOL like me, you kind of like have to keep people accountable. So it's just Lego's the singular, Lego's the plural.
Wait, say it again.
Lego is the singular, and Lego, the same word, is the plural.
Oh.
Kind of like there's a couple of words like that.
Yeah, there are. I'm trying to think of it.
Yeah, but like, I'm an AFOL. And if you don't know what an AFOL is, guys, adult fan of Lego. Kinsley's a KFOL, kid fan of Lego. It's kind of like a little tribe. But what was I gonna say? What were we saying?
Sorry, those are the things that fill you up.
What
are the things that don't fill you up? 5 things that drain you.
Oh yeah, so then what would drain me, I would think it'd be if we usually have 2 to 3 commitments in the week with other people. Like I can only, like 1 or 2 fills me.
Yeah.
2 to 3, 3 to 4 drains me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's 4 birthday parties that week, or like a family over for dinner, plus we're going to this picnic thing, and plus a kid's birthday, that's a little stretching for me personally. But I love people and they fill me, but I've learned that I have a cap. And so also like that, that's an easy one. Like basically an overcommitted schedule with other people per week. That drains me. Not being able to get up and actually have my time before the kids get up, that drains me, even though it takes more work to get up. So again, this is interesting how these happen, right? What are some more?
Dairy.
I love the dairy fills me up, and then it definitely drains me, if you know what I mean. It fills me and then it drains me. That one's on both lists. We'll just leave
Late
that there.
nights.
Yeah, I can't stay up past if I stay up past 10 more than 2 nights in a row, the week is crap after that. But yeah, so so anyways, do that exercise, super easy. It just took us 2 minutes. And then I just don't think people even do that a lot of times. So then they don't realize
Or I feel like you need to do it often.
Yeah.
Like every quarter.
Yeah, exactly. Every couple months,
Come back
do
to
it. And do it in a micro way. And then it's a simple exercise. And then when you see it on paper, it's a really simple principle. You just go, okay, let's try to do less of that, more of that. Boom, solved.
Yeah.
Like it's that easy. Of let me try to put these things that fill me in front of my face more. So I like really good coffee. Okay, let me make sure I drink my really good coffee and have the nice beans and do the Chemex and the press and all that stuff. Okay. Or I really like good books. Okay, let's make sure I'm reading a book then and set some principles where I'm not on my phone all the time, or every night, every week, but maybe a couple times I'm watching YouTube videos, a couple times reading books. And if it's draining me, well, then let's make sure to really protect our schedule or this, whatever. But yeah, so that's what I would say. But what would you end though? We're going a little bit longer than usual. But yeah, what would you end or what would be final thoughts you'd have? Self-care.
I mean, I think it's all said.
Well, guys, we never know how to end. But no, seriously, guys, we hope this encouraged you. And here's the main thing I want to leave you guys with.
I will. Can I end with this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yours is probably a lot better.
Go ahead. Preach.
I just want to say, the Lord wants us to take care of ourselves.
Yes,
He wants us to come to a place of rest. He doesn't want us to be burned out. He doesn't want us to be overwhelmed or stressed or so busy or numbing out. Like those are not things of the Lord. He wants us to be flourishing, full. And so I think self-care is a godly principle.
100%.
I think it's a spiritual discipline, but I think it's really realizing, okay, what does that mean then? What really fills me up? Yeah. What is my heart's motivation? What do I really love? And I think it's just getting away. It may take you 10 minutes to just journal it out real quick. And I think, but anyway, so encouragement to do this exercise, to really think about it, to ask yourselves those questions.
Totally. And I'll end with this, guys. This is one last final thought. Because we wanted to be really practical, so that's why we were trying to talk about this. But now taking it to even making sure we really hear the core issue as followers of Jesus. And that is that Jesus, this isn't just, you don't just take care of yourself so that you have a self that's taken care of. You take care of yourself so that then you can be fully human as an image bearer of God who then can live on mission to do what God said, which is love God and love neighbor. And we see this clearly too, that when you are stepping out in service, meaning if you're pouring yourself out, self-care is important, but Jesus will actually take care of that for you if you let him, right? Yeah. So you're not responsible for all this. You don't have to bear that burden of refilling all these things. He will take care of you if you sit at his feet. And the one example I think of is when Jesus fed the 5,000. Now, I rarely hear people preach on this when they preach on this, but it's not a coincidence that Jesus had 12 disciples, and when he fed the 5,000, there was actually leftovers. That's what's crazy, right? So he fed 5,000 people, and we try to feed 30 people, and there's usually all gets eaten, right? And so you try to feed 5,000, and there was lefties? I'm like, let me get those lefties, okay?
It's because Jeff wasn't there on the hill that day.
That's true. But with that, if you go read the story, how many baskets were left over? The amount of leftovers and the amount of baskets that were left over was exactly how many disciples Jesus had. So again, it's almost like he knew, he prepared, and they were the ones helping and serving and administering the 5,000. If you actually think about the logistics, that's a crazy long day trying to feed 5,000 people, and they were kind of in charge of it. But Jesus knew, and there was an abundance. Jesus is not a God of scarcity, right? There was abundance that spilled over from Jesus's miracle and his nature and how he wants to take care of people for people that were even closer to him, not the crowds, but his actual disciples. And there was just the right amount for them to be full themselves. So when you're taking care of other people, Jesus will take care of you if you let him. So
good word.
That's all we got. No, hey, we love you guys. We hope you're encouraged. Like usual, hop in on Instagram, hop in on social. We'd love to hear from you. This stuff, we want to be a two-way street. Podcasts are amazing, but they're actually really terrible at having a conversation unless you guys record a podcast and answer us. So hop on our Instagram and let us know what you thought on Tuesdays and Wednesdays when we do those posts. And we love you guys. Have a good rest of the week.